What does it truly mean to be a legendary RPG? Is it a great story? Is it characters that you love and want to cheer on? Is it about massive, screen-filling boss fights with insane music? Or does it really just come down to having a world you care about? Role-playing games have always been my favorite genre of gaming. In fact, this YouTube channel exists because of my obsession with Final Fantasy as a kid. But in the last few decades, it does feel like we're getting less and less truly legendary RPGs, especially the classic kind, games with turn-based combat and big maps and jaw-dropping dungeons and stuff like that. But that's exactly what drew me to Expedition 33, because as I write this, I have now beaten the main story, I've done a lot of the side bosses, I've done some of the side quests, but just in general, even after almost 50 hours of it, there's something so magic about this game, something that is still hidden, and I love that. But let's break down the goods and the bads in my brutally honest review. Hi, I'm DreamcastGuy, and if you could please, it would mean a lot. Let's see if we can get this video to 2,000 likes, and subscribe if you haven't already. But let's dive deep. Now, to start with, what is this? Clair Obscur Expedition 33 is a rather bleak and definitely desperate tale of people trying to survive in a universe that is, well, it's about to end. In this beautiful city of Lumiere, people gather every year for a festival. They're here to try to celebrate, to say goodbye, to give flowers, to confess secrets, to drink wine, and to try as best as possible not think about the fact that they're all about to die. Now, the reason why is because of a creature called the Paintress. Every year on this day, she paints a number, one number lower every single year, and everybody that age just fades away. So what they do is they come here to the festival, they say hello, goodbye, I love you, and then they set off. The survivors, those who choose to do it, every year they build an expedition. Their goal? To sail across the sea and kill the Paintress to make sure that nobody else has to fade away. Now, before we start breaking stuff down, can we just say real quick, holy heck, everything about this game looks so good. We're going to talk about the dungeons and the combat and stuff like that, but just real quick, I gotta say, this game's writing is fantastic, its voice acting is fantastic, but this cast of characters, this is some of the best actors I've ever heard in a video game. We have Charlie Cox, the guy who plays Daredevil, is the main character. Jennifer English from Baldur's Gate 3, she's your second in command. You run into mysterious people that are on the continent of the Paintress, and they talk to you. You interact with them. There's Andy Serkis, the incredibly talented Ben Starr from Final Fantasy 16. Everybody in this game just absolutely kills it. But you know what? It wouldn't matter if this is a cool world if the script itself didn't suck. I mean, if the script is bad, it doesn't matter how great the actors are. But thankfully, this is fire. Expedition 33, this group has a motto. It's something they repeat over and over again throughout the game. For those who come after. It's this thing that they all live by. Our heroes, they're not expecting to survive this adventure. They're not really going to grow old. They know the fact that even if they fail, they're either going to die in their pursuit to kill the Paintress, or they're going to survive long enough to get painted and they're all going to fade away anyways. But that's because now they're all driven to die for the same goal. And this is an interesting sort of semantic to it. The people that came before, they've cleared paths, they've made the handholds we climb on, they've set flags, they made it so that we have these campsites that we can rest at. And I like the fact that our heroes, they're not scared of death. They don't ever feel like there's some sort of failure. Every time they get to that next big checkpoint, they always go for those that come after. It works exceptionally well because in so many moments during this adventure, there is a haunting sense of progress because the deeper you go into this continent, the more you see literal piles of dead bodies. You read notes of people that literally died, the last people that ever made it this far, talking about, hey, we did this, here's our next objective, here's how we tried to do it, here's how we failed. But instead of being this like really dark, twisted turn to it, it always has this strange sense of hope. Everybody kind of feels like, yes, they died. Yes, we will die, but somebody someday is going to stop the Paintress. But okay, let's just say this. It doesn't matter how good the story is if, well, it's not fun to play. This is a video game, not a movie, right? Well, thankfully, the combat kicks ass. So this is a retro-style JRPG with a big twist. So what you do is that there's a bunch of characters in the game, but you get to form a party of 3. Now, the 3 people you have, each character has different strengths and weaknesses. Some are more melee-focused, some people can throw magic or heal people, but what's cool about this is that as you battle through these wild environments, enemies and your squad, they take turns trying to land combos or slinging spells and stuff like that, but you also have to dodge deadly hits. And those dodges, that's the big twist. You know, in typical turn-based RPGs, you pick your attack and it just gets carried out. You know, there's not a lot of activity to the combat itself. But here, when enemies try to hit you, there's a window, a chance to dodge, to parry, to jump over attacks, or even do a counter blow. Now, what's cool about this is that it does take practice. Dodges, in my opinion, are the most forgiving. About 95% of the time I've just tried to dodge because you can dodge stuff a lot easier than you can parry it or jump it and stuff like that. But what's cool about this is that whenever you actually do this, you can get special extra abilities. You can land these counterattacks that may expose their weak points, generate extra mana, or sometimes just makes it where by negating that damage, now you can spend more time blasting instead of healing. But what's cool about this is that when you're doing your own attacks as well, they have that same time-sensitive element to it. When you're blasting baddies, well-timed button presses can do extra damage. They'll do stuff like some higher-level spells. You actually have to time it properly or it can explode in your face. There's something so active and engaging about this that definitely works a lot. But I think it's cool because, you know, in a lot of these classic RPGs you've played, they're not super skill-based. Look, I love old-school JRPGs. I've played every Final Fantasy. I've played Star Ocean. I've played a bunch of stuff like that. But let's face it, usually what it comes down to is just being high enough level. If you're high enough level, typically you can wreck people. Whereas Expedition 33, this system, it needs you to be alert, to practice the enemy timing and to do those attacks. In order to kill things, a lot of times, if you're really good, if you're really set, if you've practiced all those dodges, you can beat enemies without being touched. And honestly, that feels awesome. In fact, if you kill enemies without taking damage, you even get experience points bonuses and stuff like that. Additionally, though, what I love is that all of our characters have their own style of abilities. Like Gustave, the main character, he's got this electric gauntlet. By landing blows, it charges up your gauntlet and you can unleash it for massive damage. Maelle, she's kind of your sort of your tank character. She has different stances that she can shift between to be more offensive or defensive in combat. And it's kind of awesome. It's one of my favorites. But there's also the spellcaster Lune. She's like kind of a standard mage, but she builds up more charges of fire, ice, and earth, which can then be consumed in a single turn as like an explosive mega hit. A lot of the characters sort of have this rolling, stacking power creep that makes it where, like, in bigger fights, it feels cool to just be escalating and escalating your damage dealt. But, you know, I'm just talking about a few characters here. There's a bunch of different people. Like, there's one character that can steal enemy skills. There's one guy that plays cards that have light and dark abilities to them. So you can do sort of buffs and debuffs and stuff like that. But what I really loved about this is that every character feels so different, so balanced, so engaged, but at the same time, what's really crazy about this is the system called Luminas. Now, I'm showing you in the menu here. This is part of the fun of the exploration because as you're going around to dungeons, purposely taking the wrong path and stuff like that and fighting optional bosses and stuff like that, you get these things that can be equipped. Now, by doing battles, you permanently learn it, so you can mix and match it. But the way this works is that these are everything from extra shooting damage to enemies on fire take more critical hits, all sorts of stuff like that. A free revive. These are essentially learned passive abilities. Now, you can only equip a certain amount of them. As you level up, you get more Lumina points. You can really figure out some really clever builds. Like, I basically broke the game when I found a skill that made it where I do more damage when I'm low health. Then I equipped a bunch of Luminas that made it where I couldn't be healed, but I do more damage when I'm low health. I made a bunch of stuff where as I'm close to death, my critical strikes go up. I basically made it where I was essentially always one hit from being killed, but I could do sometimes tens of thousands of damage with every single hit. It was so incredibly fun to kind of figure out by my own trial and error experimentation how brutal I could make a person, stack up all the Luminas possible. And I'm doing this before launch, obviously, but I'm super excited for when this game comes out because I'm sure people are going to be theory crafting these insane builds that I didn't even think about. But now this brings me to the dungeons and why the exploration is just so epic, because every environment is completely crammed with side objectives, people that you can help, optional bosses, and cool secrets. Many of the best Lumina and best weapons I found in the game were off the beaten path, stuff that's easy to accidentally just not see. But I feel like everybody that plays this, I feel like, honestly, you're going to find a ton of secrets because there is a natural sense to the wandering. Now, this game does have an overworld map. At first, you can walk from location to location. Originally, you're just on foot, but later in the game, you get this big talking beanbag looking guy called Esquie. He can swim, he can fly, and he basically is how you get from dungeon to dungeon. And as the game progresses, you start to go to some places that are, just honestly mind-blowing. Deep sea areas with shattered ships floating above you, abandoned desert cities, robot-filled forests, mysterious manors in the middle of nowhere. I found myself constantly wanting to take every path in every dungeon because I wanted to unlock new stuff, but mostly just because you truly cannot imagine what's coming next. There is this really jaw-dropping sense of dreamlike wonder to every single part of this game, where everything about it just feels like a mix of a fantasy and a nightmare, where you're just seeing piles of dead bodies and busted battlefields and chaotic, terrible stuff on fire, all perpetually frozen in time. But at the same time, it's gorgeous, it's wonderful, it's wondrous, and I think that's so cool. I love the worlds because as you're learning about the Paintress and our characters and all the previous expeditions, it never stops being amazing. I feel like sometimes there are those stories where you kind of become numb to the epicness. Here, it unfolds at such a brilliant pace, it never gets numb. There's something so bleak and perfect about how they slowly just peel back the layers to this devastating land and make you care about every character, every line of dialogue, every creature you help. All of it matters. I had this time about 30 hours into the game where I went back to camp and the heroes were just sitting around joking about wine and how badly they wanted to get drunk, swapping tales and jabs and writing in journals and stuff like that. And they just seem to be so completely at peace with the death they think is coming. They know that they'd rather die fighting with their friends than waiting for the Paintress to just scribble the next digit on the tree and kill them, right? I feel like in all my time with Clair Obscur, I found myself so engaged by this world. I always found myself wanting to check that extra area, to find that other boss, to grind to learn that next skill, to see what else I could figure out. I gotta say, the only gripe I have, and this is a minor gripe, but I do feel like it's crucial to kind of point out, is that, earlier we talked about the dodges and the parries and stuff like that. So here's my complaint. Bosses do like 20 attacks in a row sometimes. Okay, that's a little bit of an exaggeration, but if you're not properly leveled or if you don't have a bunch of points into your speed stat, many of the major encounters in this game, the monsters can throw 5 or 6 hit combos in a row, and they hurt super freaking bad. And if you're not leveled up enough, some bosses will take 2 or 3 or 4 turns in a row, meaning that you have to legitimately dodge 20 hits consecutively. And if you don't, a lot of times it will kill you. The timing at times can be brutal. Now, practicing these fights, you can figure out the timing pretty good, especially because a lot of times they will do a sort of repetitious cycle. If you're good at dodging some of the stuff, it's pretty ubiquitous, but it does become that thing where when you're first trying to get that exact timing down, it can be, in my opinion, overly punishing. Now, again, this is a minor gripe, but you guys know that I grew up very much in love with old school RPGs, and if you're going to this expecting a purely passive turn-based game, this ain't that. At times, this game is it's a bit crucial to get your timing down. Overall, I absolutely loved my time with Expedition 33, and it's the kind of game where as you get deeper into it, as you figure out a build, as you see new secrets and stuff like that, it's a game that continues to shock you as you get deeper into it. If you're a fan of turn-based RPGs, if you're looking for that game that is very much like classic Final Fantasy, I think this is definitely it. I know a lot of Final Fantasy fans, it's like that big hot topic people constantly debate now is how come Square Enix is doing all these action RPGs, stuff like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth or Final Fantasy XVI. If you're looking for something that feels like a true follow-up to Final Fantasy X specifically, this is 1,000,000% for you. Okay, so we've heard some good and some bad, but let's go to the ratings board and put a big number on it. I am giving Expedition 33 a 9.5 out of 10. Thank you for watching all the way to the very end, counting, beating the game, writing the script, recording it, editing it. This entire video took me almost 70 hours to do, but I got to admit that it's been such a great time. This game just continues to melt my brain, and I'll admit that as soon as I beat it, I immediately went online and bought a physical copy. So when this comes out, I'm going to have a copy so I can lend it to my friends, but I just wanted to say, I'm a big proponent of vote with your wallet, about buying the games that you want to see more of. I love turn-based combat. I love classic-style JRPGs and stuff, and I just want to implore you that you really should give this game a shot. It's coming to Game Pass as well, but I'm just saying that I hope this game does extremely well. I hope it sells like crazy, because I want to see more stuff like this. Passionate teams, a new studio, a new idea, a new universe, making something that actually feels new. Thank you to the studio for doing such an incredible piece of art. They said they were heavily inspired by Final Fantasy X, and man, this might be the best Final Fantasy I've played since 10, even if it technically doesn't say Final Fantasy in the title. But thank you for watching. If you could, please give this video a like, maybe leave me a nice comment, and also subscribe. But most importantly, keep dreaming. Thanks so much for watching that video. If you want to see something else, you can always click this link to see what I put up last, or, subscribe and see what's coming up next. Also, I promise that whatever I do, it'll try not to suck.